Welcome to the podcast, Colts Nation 365. This is episode 4. I'll be your host, Zach Boyd. And today we'll be joined by special guest Aaron Coffey from the Colts Brew. How you doing today, Aaron?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. So, Aaron, I guess we'll jump right into it. What are your expectations for the Colts this year?
You said expectations of this season?
Yeah. What are your Colts expectations this year?
So, obviously, what we saw last year was we saw an extremely young team, a lot of new faces, a lot of unknowns. And obviously, it got Colts fans hyped up. And after that 1-5 start, it kind of brought us back down to earth. And, obviously, what happened next was all history. The Colts went on that really good run that ended in the divisional round of the playoffs. So fast forward to this year, I see a lot more young talent, a lot of second year guys who are coming back, such as Darius Leonard and Quentin Nelson, who are proven guys who are going to come in and really contribute some really good things. I think Ballard is a draft guru, and I think these picks are going to pan out. Maybe not as good as last year, but they're going to add some quality depth. And just looking at this team and having been out in camp for a few of those days and just seeing the energy all around, offense, defense, even special teams, it's definitely not unrealistic to peg this team at 11-5 or 12-4. You obviously don't want to get too ahead of yourself yet, but I think the sky's the limit with this team, and it's not going to be Super Bowl or bust, but I do think that this team has the potential to get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to agree. I guess that leads into my next question, the $1 million question, Aaron. The Andrew Luck injury. What's your take on that? I know you had spent some time down there. Do you have any type of pulse on that right now?
I think that what we're seeing right now is pure caution, and that's not to say that there's nothing that's a little bit more wrong than we think, but I think it's all caution. And when you look at a guy like Andrew Luck, who spent some time out with that shoulder injury, who's dealt with other injuries like the lacerated kidney, he's no stranger to injury. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that when he went through that shoulder injury, it was extremely mental for him. And even when he got through the shoulder injury itself, you got to think, if you've ever broken a leg or a foot or ankle or anything, you're apprehensive to put weight on it even after the injury is healed. It could be completely healed, and you're just not able to get over that mental block. And I think for Andrew, knowing what he went through with the shoulder, maybe the calf is not nearly as severe. I know the Colts a couple times compared it to the Kevin Durant injury, where he, eventually would go on to tear the Achilles. I don't think it's nearly that severe. I think what they need to do is, number one, be more open about it. I think a lot of what the problem is they're kind of being not sneaky, but they're not releasing all the information. I think, and I think for Andrew, the key is to rest. I don't think there's any reason you need to play him in the preseason outside of maybe a little bit in week 3. I mean, there's just really no point to it. But, I think that what Colts fans need to do is just take a deep breath and just think to themselves, if Andrew Luck says he's going to be all right, he was all right before, and he's going to be all right again.
Yeah, one thing I think they've learned from the past, Aaron, they put Andrew Luck out in front of the media, which they did not do with the shoulder injury. Kind of letting the media understand what's going on. He mentioned that they had some, they already done scans and MRIs and all that good stuff. Everything's intact. Everything is on the up and up. They're just being extra cautious. You think that they put Andrew out there because they learned from the last time? I feel like they kind of hurt the Colts fans a little bit, and that was a learning experience. You feel like this was planned to put Andrew Luck out there just to kind of temper expectations a little bit?
I do. I mean, like you had said, he was very rarely was he put out with full reign in front of the media during that shoulder injury. It was a lot of coaching and upper brass that were out talking about it. You look at now dealing with the calf. I think and I think at some point, even in practice, I did not hear it myself, but hearing someone else discuss it, I think at one point somebody had asked Frank Reich about the injury, and he kind of alluded to, Go ask Andrew. If you want to know, go ask Andrew. So they obviously, I'm sure the coaches at this point are probably tired of hearing the questions. They've given all the information that they're allowed to give. And, at this point, it's just about healing and getting better. But I think the fact that they're letting Andrew talk about it should bring some ease to Colts fans. If they're letting the quarterback talk about the extent of the injury, you know, typically no one's going to be more honest than the players about how they feel. And Andrew Luck is experiencing some pain. He's talked about it. It's not gone yet, but he also mentioned that he's, number one, played through worse pain in a game, and has also said that he feels he'll be ready for week one. So those are the type of responses you're not going to get out of coaches. And I think the Colts learned their lesson a little bit. They lost a little bit of trust, I feel like, and I think number one, this is a way for them to gain some of that trust back, but it's also a way for them to ease the fans and let them know that he's hurting right now, but he's going to be okay.
Yeah, man, I think everybody at Colts Nation's kind of holding their breath, but I think everybody's, cautiously optimistic. Before we go on, Promise Colts Nation 365, we're going to do a contest. Also going to include Aaron's fan base over at Colts Brew. We're giving 2 free tickets away, 400 retweets, 400 listens. We're going to do a random draw, and we'll announce it just as soon as that happens. So thanks for everybody joining in, and I guess we'll hop back into it. 2 players that you saw when you were down there at camp that you thought, wow, I'm excited now that I've seen them.
I'm sorry, buddy. I think that my line might have skipped. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 players while you were down there at camp that you're excited to see now that you've actually seen them firsthand. 2 players that you're excited to see.
Well, number one, I think I'll start on offense. One of them is Nyheim Hines, and this is a guy who was pretty heavily involved in the passing game, or the receiving game rather, last year, who made some really good plays, especially late in the season. And I think that he is going to take a step forward. And I think that Mac is definitely their guy, their main back going into the season. They're going to lean on him a lot. But Nyheim Hines offers a degree of versatility where he's going to be useful on the ground, but he's also going to be useful as a receiver. And, I think they saw him out wide a couple of times, and I think they're going to move him around pre-snap to confuse, defenses and keep them on their toes. And I just think overall, this guy's just going to have a really, really good season. As far as defense goes, I know a lot of people are, obviously talking about Darius Leonard, and he'd be silly not to. But, I think Rock Ya-Sin is a guy who has come in, and he's just brought this raw energy. I mean, you look, every play he's involved in, every play, even if he's not involved, he's with his guys, and he's just pumped, and he's excited, and he's just making plays. So, this is someone who a lot of people, I think, had pegged to the Colts. I think our very own Dan Barnes had pegged him to the Colts in one of his mocks, and I think there's a reason for that. He just seems like the type of player that Ballard's going to go get. He's an effort guy. He's going to give the most effort on every play. He's going to thrive in competition, and I think just the skill he has, he's got the potential to be a day one starter. And, you look at how deep this Colts secondary is. A lot of people don't realize it because it doesn't get a lot of national attention, but that's truly just it. I mean, he's going to slide in here, and it may be bursting onto the scene, or it might be an under the radar type situation, but he is going to be in that mix frequently. And I'm really excited to see, the type of plays he can make. Especially being a young guy, quarterbacks rather, are not going to be as cautious. And so I think they're going to try to test him a little bit. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him come away with, 5, maybe 6, or even more picks this year.
What he got Hilton the other day. I heard him say in the interview, I'll beat him on one play, but he's going to beat me on the very next. So, very quick study, a very quick learner, a guy I think I'm very, very high on as well. I think he can be a day one starter. There's just really no reason to hold him back if the play is there. The physical tools are already there. So I think we're on the same page there. This is just kind of Off the cuff question though, who do you look up to in Colts media, Aaron? I know you got into this. You know, you love doing this for the fans. Is there a media member that you kind of thought, wow, that's I really look up to
Yeah,
this guy?
I think number one, just being in that Colts media room when I was down at camp and seeing some of these guys that I've spent years reading, guys like Stephen Holder and Zach Kiefer. Zach's been on our show before and was a great interview. Um, Andrew Walker is someone who I've gotten closer to as camp has drawn closer. He's been on our show before, just an overall great guy. But Jake Arthur is one guy who he was kind of the reason that I originally had gotten into media. I started off in journalism, and he was always kind of that available guy, and was always willing to offer feedback and was always willing to offer any sort of constructive criticism. And now I consider Jake to be a great friend and obviously a great mentor, and I'm learning everything I can from him even now. So just guys like that, guys who you're able to get in and really get close to and learn as much from as possible. Guys like Jake, those are the guys. Jake Arthur and Andrew Walker. Those are the guys you're happy to have representing, Colts media, and they embody everything that the Colts stand for, and in their work, and they're extremely hard workers. They're extremely thorough, and I just hope that in my content, now and in the future, I can mirror some of that and bring some of that into the more local Colts media.
Yeah, Aaron, I can tell you right now, man, you're a guy that I admire, I look up to, just kind of bursting onto the scene right now. I look up to George Bremer, Kevin Bowen. Those are players as well. But we all had to get a start, and it's just nice to have those accessible people. They mean a lot to us. We're going to go on to our next things, a new thing we've never done on the show. We're going to call it now, later, or never. So I'm just going to give you a player, and you can elaborate if you want, or you can just kind of give me a now, later, or never. And I guess we'll start with the first one you mentioned earlier, Rock Sin.
Um, so this is like in terms of like whether I think they're going to be effective. Yeah, I think he's a
Absolutely.
now guy. You kind of mentioned it, the physicality, the effort, a quick learner. I don't think it's going to take much time for him to make an impact. So I'd probably say now with him.
Okay. We'll go to Paris
That's
Campbell.
that's another now. He was making some insane plays. A lot of people look at him and they think he's going to be, a slot guy who kind of, works in some gadget plays. But I mean, the man is just an all around good receiver. He's making plays over people. He's beating guys with moves. I think he's definitely a now guy.
Cool. What about Kari Willis? Been a little buzz about him.
He is definitely making some plays, and I think the effort is definitely there. I would say later, just because of the names that you have ahead of him. I mean, he was such a good leader. I think at Michigan State, he's got a lot of the qualities that you want in a player like that. But I think just because of the depth we have and the players we have ahead of him, I definitely think he'll contribute. I just would probably say it would be later down the stretch.
Alrighty. Another guy who's been making some headlines, EJ Speed. What do you think about him, Aaron?
Yeah, I like speed back there. I mean, you look at all these rookies, Okereke and Speed and Banagoo. These are all guys that you hope can step up and at least contribute slightly. I don't think you look at any of these guys and think, well, these are guys that are gonna come on and really do anything spectacular right away. And I could be wrong. I do think that Speed is one of those later guys. I think just the effort alone is enough to keep him in that conversation. I mean, you don't really want to say never with any of these guys, especially being that they're Ballard picks. I think that if he sees something in there, that I have to just by association see something in there. So I think he's going to do it. He might not have the impact that some of these other guys do, but I definitely think we'll see a little bit later on.
We're going to go with Mo Alley Cox.
Say that one more time.
We'll go with Mo Alley Cox.
Oh, Mo Alley Cox, man. You think you can ask anybody who I've talked to in camp about how I feel about Mo Alley Cox, and I think this dude is a baller. I mean, he you have to look at the situation he's in and look that you've got Ebron and Doyle ahead of him. But I think that the way that Frank Reich likes to utilize his tight ends, he's got it all. He's got size, he's got hands, he can block. I mean, you got to think this guy was a basketball player before he came over. The art of the box out. He's got it, and I think that he's a now contributor, and I say that even though he's kind of got a couple guys ahead of him. The way that Frank runs his offense and just the way that he plays, I think he's got potential to really make an impact. And if nothing else, he's just a guy that people don't know a whole lot about. And it's going to be a situation where Frank might run three tight ends, and Mo Alley is going to get the catch just because people aren't going to pay as much attention. And I think they should. I think that he's a name that people need to know. And, I think he definitely makes this team. And I think that, in any event that he wouldn't, it would be because he's got trade value. He's young, he's athletic, he's big, he's everything you want in a tight end, and he's got hands. So, I think he's definitely, he would be a now and later. That dude's going to contribute now, and he's going to contribute a lot, down the stretch. And hopefully, when the Colts make a deep playoff run, that's not an if, that's a when. I think that Mo Alley Cox is going to be heavily utilized to throw defenses off.
And the last person we'll talk about is Kamoko Ture. What on him?
I think Ture is one of those guys who really didn't get to show a whole lot. You look at these guys they have on the defense. Jabal Shear, granted he will miss a little bit of time. They brought in Justin Houston. You got Banigou, who people have been saying has been showing some promise, and then you've got just a lot of talent on that defense. It's deep, and I think Ture is a guy that needs to continue to build upon what he already has. He needs to continue to develop upon the fundamentals, and he needs to continue to to develop his own I guess identity out there. The beauty of being in the linebacking and the pass rushing situation, being in that position is you have an opportunity every play. Sometimes with receivers, it's kind of iffy because you never know if the ball is going to come your way, or as a running back, you never quite know if you're going to be able to break it open. But on that defense, your one job most of the time is to get to the ball carrier, and I think he's got the potential to do that. He's got the potential. He's got people around him that are just really good teachers. Robert Mathis is still talking to these guys. Jabal Shear, Justin Houston, both vets who've got a lot to offer. I think what he needs to do is just continue to learn and draw everything he can from these players. And I think he's got the potential to be a later contributor. I think he's got the potential to be a now contributor. You don't really want to rule any of these guys out immediately, but there's just so much talent, and I think he the only thing that's going to stop him is himself.
Yeah, absolutely. He's worked with Robert Mathis. We all have such an affection for Robert Mathis. He's a guy that I feel like, my take on him is that specialist. I don't know that he's ever going to be great on rundowns, but, he is definitely a freak athlete. And one of the he's going to get a shot with Sheared out, too. So we'll see what happens there. And then I want to ask you a question, man. Who's your must-have Colts fantasy football player this year? Like the guy you're targeting. You're like, man, I need him on my team.
Man, I'll tell you what, fantasy is a fickle beast because you can get a guy that's just good all around, and then you can get guys that's just good on certain matchups. And I think one guy, man, that's tough. One guy that you just have to go for. I would probably say Saquon Barkley. Obviously Ty is a good option. He plays the Texans twice a year, and he's going to eat when he plays the Texans. But I think Barkley's a good option. I think if you're looking at Colts specifically, I think Ebron is going to be a name that you want to look out for. I know they've got some competition now at tight end. I know Jack Doyle's back, Mo Alley Cox is in the fold, but I mean Eric Ebron, I think is going to have a similar type season as we saw last year. He's aiming for the stars with some of these numbers, but I think he's got the talent to get there. And with how much the Colts love to utilize tight ends and how much Andrew Luck loves to dish the ball out to these guys. I think Eric Ebron is going to be a guy who a lot of people look over in some of these fantasy drafts. He's going to get passed over, for guys like Kelsey and George Kittle and Jared Cook and some of these other guys. But I think Ebron is going to be an absolute monster in fantasy this year.
Yeah, and Aaron, I think you got to kind of go here, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. But I'll have one more question for you, a fan question. They're wanting to know about you were down there. What did you see from Deion?
So Deion Kane is obviously coming off a pretty horrendous injury, but he seems to show one quality that I think a lot that you really want to see out of your guys, and I think he trusts in himself. And you look, he's making some really good plays. He was making plays, and you kind of forget. Now with him being number 11, you're kind of looking around, and then you see 11 making a play, and you're like, wow, that was Deion Kane. And you look when he makes his routes and he makes his cuts, and he's planting that leg and just taking off. Number one, he's still super fast. He doesn't seem to have lost much of that speed, but there's no hesitation. I think when he takes off and he makes that cut and he takes off downfield, he trusts in himself. And I think he trusts in the knee. I think he trusts in the doctors. And I think, ultimately he is going to make an impact. And I know, a lot of people are saying temper expectations. We've yet to see him play, a meaningful down of football. But I think number one, I think he's going to make the receiving room. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I think he's going to be really valuable in the receiving game. And I think, you got TY, you've got Funchess, and Funchess is going to be, your big physical guy. But Kane offers, a nice complement of size to speed. And I'm really excited to see him go out there and just ball out. I think it's going to happen. I think he's healed from the injury. I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to be able to contribute immediately. And really what's important, and the only thing that we've not seen to this point is we've not seen he and Andrew Luck be able to develop a lot of chemistry. Obviously, Luck has not been out there a whole lot throwing to these guys. So you just have to hope that when the season starts, there's enough of it there that he can get those looks from Andrew. And I think once he gets a couple, Luck's going to realize what kind of receiver he has in Kane. And I think it's all going to be behind us then.
Yeah, man, I think it's important for Colts fans to notice, too, that, Deion Kane, this is his rookie year. He didn't play last year. He's a little ahead of the curve from the mental standpoint, but I think we got to be patient with him and see how that works out. But he's definitely going to be a fun and exciting player. Aaron, before we go, man, tell the fans what you're doing, man. What you got going on, podcast writing. Let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, man. So we got some good stuff right around the corner. Obviously, those who followed us last year know that our main shtick during the season is that we do a preview and review of all of our games. And that's going to be something that we focus on this year, is really, really helping you guys get into game mode once the regular season starts. We do have a website right around the corner that we're really excited about. I can't really share much more than that, but you can obviously find us on Twitter at the Colts Brew, and that's kind of our main base of operations. You can go on Instagram as well. We're on Instagram, but Twitter's usually where we hang out.
Awesome, man. Aaron, I want to thank you so much for joining the show. Tell you right now, it means so much for me and my show. I'm just getting started. I'm 3 weeks in, and it was an honor having you on here, man. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, man, I really appreciate you having me on. I love your stuff, and I look forward to working with you and having you as a colleague, man.
Absolutely. Take care, buddy.
Yep, take care.